All right, so now we're going to do some sodium hydroxide additions to just distilled water and see how that affects the pH. So just like the last time when we tested hydrochloric acid, with distilled water, the pH can be really sensitive depending on what's in the glass, where before you put the water in. So it's really important to make sure everything's clean. Even then, it can still pick up a little bit of anything that's in there that might be charged. So, and that can affect the reading of the electrode, because that is how the electrode works. It gets electrical readings. So if anything affects that, then we can see the pH kind of like have a hard time balancing out. But this is actually sitting between 6.5, well, now it's not, about 6.5 to 6.6. So the pH of just our pure water is sitting at around 6.32. We're going to record that now. 6.32. Before we add anything to it, taking my pH strip and just getting a quick read. Oh, it looks like to my eye that sits between a 3 and a 4. So the indicator strips aren't very helpful here either. All right, but yeah, using 6.32 as our initial value for the pH of our distilled water, I'm going to add about 5 milliliters of 0.1 sodium hydroxide and stir. That should be good. We'll let this settle. And it's still taking a while, but you can already see that just after one addition of a very small amount of sodium hydroxide, we've already jumped way up in pH. So if I take my pH strip and I use this to measure, yeah, that's between 11 and 12. After just one addition. So let's add 5 more mLs of the sodium hydroxide. Then we'll stir. And that should be good. After the second addition, we don't change a whole lot. But we'll let this settle. and it looks like we've settled at about 12.17 on the pH. So again, our pH strip is going to be a blue, but let's just double check that. Yep, you can see a nice blue pH strip right at about 12 to 13. Let's add another addition of our sodium hydroxide and stir. That should be good. We'll let it start to settle now. Looks like it's settled at 12.36. Another read from the pH strip still puts us between 12 and 13. Let's add another 10 milliliters of sodium hydroxide and stir. Stop it here. Okay, so we have added a total of 30 milliliters of our 0.1 molar sodium hydroxide at this point to our distilled water, and our pH is measuring about 12.46 on our meter. If I take a pH strip, dip it in, bring it out. Yeah, you see, it's really hard to distinguish between 12 and 13, and even harder to distinguish between 13 and 14. But yeah, it seems to be right closer to 13 to me, to my eye. Let's add another 20 milliliters of the sodium hydroxide. We'll stir this. We'll stop this here, let it start to settle. All right, so it looks like it's settled at about 12.56 after we've added a total of 50 milliliters of sodium hydroxide to the distilled water. We're going to add another 50 ml and see what we get. Stir this up a bit. We'll stop the stirring and let it start to settle down again. Okay, and it looks like it's settled at 12.64, and that's going to be the final read we take. Again, I'm not going to take another strip reading of this because it's going to be really hard to tell between the 13 and 14. Even if it was 14, we probably wouldn't be able to tell it from the 13 anyway. So there's your values. Now you can take those and do your calculations.